Okay, y'all, we are going to do Module 10A today, Kingdom Protista. In the old days, I had a whole module on Kingdom Protista. In other words, we would spend 2 weeks on it. But now they combine Protista and fungi together into one module, Module 10, and we're going to have to zoom through it. But that's why next week, remember, I'm going to spend 2 weeks on the second half of 10 on fungi. So that means we won't have a quiz in 2 weeks, we'll have a quiz in 3 weeks. Okay, because I'm spending a little extra time on Module 10. But I feel like I'm rushed today going through Protozoa in just 1 week. All right, so y'all are going to have to keep up. So get your notebooks ready and let's go. All right, part of the reason that it's difficult to cover it all in one day is because Kingdom Protista has 2 gigantic subkingdoms, the Protozoa and the algae. All right? So we are going to be looking at, see, in the old days I would have spent a whole week on Protozoa and then a whole week on algae. But today we have to cover both of these. All right? So we're going to start with the protozoans. They are all eukaryotic cells. What does that mean?
They don't have a nucleus?
Excuse me?
They don't have a nucleus? They do have
They do have a nucleus and a bunch of membrane-bound organelles. Okay, remember the only place where we find prokaryotic cells is in Kingdom Monera, or eubacteria and archaebacteria, right? So when we took it, the fact that they wanted to break Monera into those 2 groups is crazy, because look at these 2 groups. The protozoan and the algae are vastly different from one another. All right, protozoans, we call those the quote-unquote animal-like protists. And the algae we call the plant-like protists. They're not in Kingdom Plantae or Kingdom Animalia, but they do have widely different characteristics. They should have broken this one into 2. That's what I think, and left Monera alone. But that's just me and my soapbox today. All right, so we're going to start with Protista. I'm sorry, we're looking at Protista. We're going to start with protozoans here in just a second. Kingdom Protista are eukaryotic cells. Many are unicellular. They live all alone. They're not in a colony. Some are multicellular, some famous ones. They're classified by how they eat and how they move. All right, so do you have a little table that looks like that on your book?
Yes.
Okay, so the animal-like ones are called flagellates. The fungus-like ones are like the slime molds, and the plant-like ones are the algae that go through photosynthesis, which is all of them as far as I know. Not to be confused with blue-green algae. Remember, blue-green algae is a bacteria called cyanobacteria. We learned that last module. All right, so we're going to see a lot of diversity in these groups, because some are animal-like, some are fungus-like, some are plant-like. And furthermore, the slime molds, we're not really sure what group they belong to. Not really sure. So some people put slime molds in Kingdom Fungi rather than Kingdom Protista. So I'll talk about them in both places, actually. All right, has everybody got a little something in these boxes?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have to fill in all 6 boxes? Or just the bottom 3?
It's just the bottom 3.
Okay. All right, now you see you have another group of boxes, right? It's like a table, and we're going to be looking at different phyla within the Kingdom Protista. Okay, so the first group we're going to look at is called phylum Sarcodina. Does it say Sarcodina on there? Okay, good. All right, example, amoeba. Amoeba. We're going to look at that under the microscope today. Okay. There's a pathogenic version of this called E. histolytica. It's an amoeba that causes disease. All right. Locomotion, they have something called pseudopods or false feet. They kind of ooze their cytoplasm around in different ways and are able to have motility that way. They move. Their habitat is fresh water. No distinct body shape because they're constantly moving those little pseudopods around.
You're writing these down or no?
Yeah.
You're writing them somewhere under phylum Sarcodina. They engulf their food, digesting it in something known as a food vacuole. They just kind of surround it and engulf it and then digest it. They reproduce asexually. They can form a cyst when times are tough, kind of like a bacteria forms a endospore. They have a cell wall made of no cell wall. It's a plasma membrane. They don't have a cell wall. We're going to be learning how eukaryotic cells can sometimes have cell walls. They all have cell membranes, however. Cell walls are found in plants mainly. In the eukaryotes. We have them, of course, in prokaryotes, which we've already studied. So what's the little boxes? What are they asking for?
Locomotion habitat.
So I answered everything. Okay, so we're going to look at some examples of these. We're going to look at the amoeba, which you will be drawing here soon when we look at it under the scope.
Is that what it's supposed to look like in the top right corner?
A little bit like that, yeah. I'll have a better picture in the next slide. And a little video, I think. I think I had one video today that I don't know if it's going to work. I forgot to try to fix it. All right, so it looks something like this. This is a artist's rendition. That's something you'll end up drawing that when you draw it in your lab page today. Here's an actual photograph. The one on the left is a photograph from a microscopic view. And let's watch this one. I'm not sure if there's any sound on this or not. Oh, this is a paramecium fixing to get engulfed by this amoeba.
Oh, Donna showed me this video.
It's scary. The poor paramecium, this guy, doesn't know what he's in for. It's going the wrong way. So notice the amoeba's not moving quickly. Seems like moving. Oh, there he goes, the pseudopods. He may have hooked him down here a little bit. Oh, wrong way. Got you right where I want you.
He's kind of stupid.
Yeah. He's lunch today, this guy. So much drama. So I see that cytoplasm is just flowing in there. And it's going to join up there, and it's going to be a vacuum will form. And that critter is goners, man. So you get the idea? All right, that's how they move. So this is the pathogen I was telling you about called the Entamoeba histolytica, and we see these ones make a cyst. So these little cysts, therefore, can last for a while and then come back and become a pathogen. Okay, so one place that we would see the entamoeba, what we call the acanthamoeba, a specialized version of this, it can infect your eye. All right, so here's this is a drawing of an eye with an amoeba in it. I have a friend who, her son one day said, "Hey mom, my contact lens doesn't fit my eye very well." That's a weird thing because contact lenses are supposed to fit your eyeball, right? So I would have said, yeah, wear your glasses today, everything's gonna be fine, whatever. Well, she took him to the doctor and he had the amoeba in his eye. And it looks, just prepare yourselves, are you ready?
Yeah.
Here's the actual photo. Okay.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Now this is one that has gone a little farther than it should have. This guy did not go to the doctor.
How did nobody notice and how did he not notice?
Well, he probably just didn't go to the doctor. Now my friend, they went to the doctor and they were able to treat it. He couldn't wear his contacts for a while. He had to put drops in his eyes, but it took a while to kill it.
How do they get rid of that when it's that far?
When it's this far, I don't know.
I'm just gonna
Gouge the eye.
They might have to do something like that, like
Splice
peel
it.
back the cornea and try to get it out. Yeah, sounds painful. Yeah. So, the zooflagellates are also in this group.
So cute.
Okay, and that's in the group, what was the name of them at the top?
Don't draw that, Eddie.
What's the name of this group? Sarcodina? Okay, so you can find these in Sarcodina as well. Okay, I believe that critter right there is called a giardia, and it causes intestinal upset. People who drink wild, like if you're in the mountains and you're drinking water from a stream, sometimes these will be in the water and it'll infect your gut and make you real sick. But they do have a medication you can take.
Kinda looks
It's like a heavy-duty antibiotic.
catfish.
Yeah,
It
they're really
does,
fun actually to
slightly.
look at under the scope. I used to have to do a
Catfish mixed with a balloon.
I had to do a culture for animals, and I would when I found them, they look like we called them monkey face. Could look like a monkey
What did
face.
you say they were called?
Giardia, and that's in Sarcodina. Okay, our next group we're going to talk about. Well, I don't know what name does it have for y'all. Does it have Mastigophora on yours?
No.
What does it say?
Zuga flaky.
Okay, so zooflagellate is what you're gonna. That's what we're talking about. But the old name for it is Mastigophora. Okay, but you're doing zooflagellate. Okay, so zoo meaning animal-like, flagellum means it has a flagellum. Locomotion is a flagella or a pellicle. Now that critter that was being eaten by the amoeba in the last little movie thing, it is called the paramecium, and it had the pellicle. The pellicle has kind of a groove and then these little cilia along, because it was able to move. You notice how it was moving? It just kept going the wrong direction. All right, but it has motility that way. That is called the pellicle. The flagella and the cilia is another word for it. Habitat fresh in marine waters, sometimes in soil. Food, they're autotrophic and saprophytic. So autotrophic, some of them can actually go through photosynthesis and make their own food. Others, saprophytic, what does that mean? Who remembers? Saprophytes. Eat dead stuff. They eat dead stuff.
I had that quiz back.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
the exact same thing.
Some of them have an eye spot on that picture I showed you of the zooflagellate. It looks like those eye spots. They're not true eyes, but they are able to sense light, which is good if they're going to do photosynthesis, right? They need to know where the light is. They have asexual reproduction every day, and their cell wall is a plasma membrane, and some of them have this thing called a pellicle, which is sort of like a cell wall. It has kind of a groove on it, a hard, almost like a pen. So these are our zooflagellates. I have something here. Pathogens include the African sleeping sickness. That's caused by the trypanosoma. Trypanosoma.
That's crazy.
I'm saying it wrong.
Got hurt.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to say it right. All right, we have a few of these things written down. Yes? Okay, the first one we're going to be looking at is called the euglena. Notice it's green. It does perform photosynthesis. It has an eye spot. Remember, it only knows where to go to find the light. Look at the flagellum right there. It's going to have a way to move around. It's going to whip that tail around. We're going to see these different cellular aspects inside. We have our nucleus. We have a bunch of chloroplasts in there, right, that are doing the photosynthesis. Here's a little one being shown here, whipping its flagellum, and it shows you how it gets movement. Notice how many green bits are in there for photosynthesis.
It looks like he's moving backwards. It moves like a lava lamp.
Yeah, a little bit. Sort of amoebic type movement, but with a little more direction because of that flagellum. All right, these are called volvox. You're going to look at these under the scope as well. These are kind of fun to look at. These are living ones. They're green because they have chlorophyll in them, therefore they are photosynthetic. But they're actually colonies. So the little tiny green ball inside is the individual, and then the bigger green ball is a colony, and then they're even in a bigger group right here of colonies. So if I bring it up right here, you can see those little individuals. That top part right there, notice it has a little flagella, pair of flagella up there, an eye spot. That's each of the individuals inside there.
It's like
Okay, right here. Boom, boom, boom. And the big green things are going to be their reproductive cells. So they're living in that colony, and those flagella move around. They kind of twist. Oh, I have a little thing. Shows you. They kind of twist around like that. Kind of spin around. because they're kind of lining the edges there with the flagellated cells.
I would like
All right,
to-
the pathogen I told you about called African sleeping sickness is spread by this guy, the tsetse fly. All right, so it's called African sleeping sickness because the tsetse fly is found in Africa.
How does that not mess up his like flight, his balance?
I
You
know, it's
It
crazy
looks
stuff.
like a mix between what's it called?
How does he not like fall backwards? and fly?
Mosquito, a fly, a bee.
What I do know is if you travel, anybody travel to Africa?
I'm going to Africa this next year.
Are
this
you?
year.
You'll probably have to get a vaccine against sleeping sickness
Yeah.
because of the tsetse fly.
We're gonna go hunting.
Yeah, what it has is this thing called Trypanosoma brucei. It looks like this. It's got a little flagellum on there, therefore it has motility. And what it will do is it will invade red blood cells and cause some pretty significant disease. You know, when it says sleeping sickness, it's you sleep until you don't wake up. You know, you wake up dead the next day.
Basically puts you in a coma.
Yeah.
But our white
would love
blood
that.
cells will fight it off.
Yeah, they will. They'll try. They'll try. So if you have a really strong immune system, you can fight it off. Furthermore, you will start to make antibodies against them. Furthermore, it's a creature we can kill. Remember, we can't kill a virus, so it's harder to deal with a virus. But when you have a creature like this, at least you can try to get in there and kill it with some sort of medication, which in this case I would call poison. Sometimes the poison's worth it if it kills the infective agent and isn't toxic enough to kill you. That's the big balance when it comes to medication. I think that probably the best thing to do is to make sure you always have a nice, strong immune system, eating the right foods, exercise, sunlight, that kind of
So
thing.
like such a stingray.
All right, Ciliophora. This is your next group, Ciliophora. You see in the name, their motility right there. Cilia, those are the little hairs on there, kind of like a pellicle. Paramecium and the stentor are in this group. The pathogen would be something called B. coli. B. coli.
E. coli.
Locomotion, they use cilia. You can see in this picture to the right over here, those little kind of projections coming off, the little kind of star, things coming off. Those move. They, of course, have to be in a fluid environment to move around. They live in fresh and marine water. They use a food vacuole. They engulf their food, just like the amoeba did. They have two nuclei, a macronucleus for metabolism and a micronucleus strictly for reproduction. And their reproduction is asexual and conjugation. And cell walls, plasma membranes, sometimes a pellicle.
So is this not a pelican?
Pellicle, I almost want to think of a pellicle as a little bit like a shell, but not as strong or hard as a shell, but sort of like that. All right, the best example of this one is the paramecium. Here's what it looks like. This is the guy that was being devoured by the amoeba in that first video that we saw. You can see this little, this is called the gullet right here. These cilia along here, it's a food groove. It actually, the cilia moves along the side, pulling food into this food groove right here. And that's how they're going to eat that way, okay? There's a food vacuole the food's been taken in and they're eating it. That's like bacteria or something small. The pellicle is that little bit of a structured cell wall kind of a thing. Like I said, sort of like a shell, but that's a little too simplified. When you look at it under the scope, which you'll be doing, you'll find them under the scope. They're going to look something like that. Now this is a living one. You can see some of the green in there. So sometimes these will, all of these in fact, some of them can do photosynthesis unless there's no light. If there's no light, they'll actually moderate and eat food. So they can change. They can have where they, what's the word I'm looking for? Adapt. They'll adapt to their environment.
So
All right, this is the video I don't think we can watch. Let's see if it plays. Anything else? Oh, there it is. So here you can see the cilia moving. There you can see a lot of the green, a lot of the cilia right there.
So why can't we watch this one?
Well, we can. I couldn't watch it. I guess it has to be in this, what do you call this, slideshow mode for it to work. So we can watch it. right, you get the idea. There's motility there.
You say ooh calm down. You say ooh
Okay, we have something called the stentor. It's got the cilia up here at the top. I think it's interesting. Look in parentheses, it says hands, like little hands up there. What they're doing is they're moving the food around into the food groove right here, which would be like the mouth and gullet and stomach. We can see some mitochondria. Here's the micronucleus and the macronucleus. Remember, micronucleus is just for reproduction. This is for metabolism. All right, this one. That's just a picture right there. There's the cilia, and I've got a video to watch these cilia move, like little trumpets. Look at them going. And you might can see, look, because they're alive, some food particles that are going to get, whoop, there it went, into the stomach, right there. Super cool.
Do they use them to move too, like little fins or tentacles or whatever?
I think they can, but these guys look like they are attached to something. I think they tend to, what we call, become sessile, which means to be still and let things come near them. But they do stir the water up. There's something that's out of focus right there that's going to come toward them.
So it's like a saw.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah,
so
it does look a little like a saw.
does it rotate around them?
They're beating back and forth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's causing the water to move. And it went out of focus. It's really hard to get these things, to look at live things under a microscope. It's very difficult. All right, here's the pathogen I was talking about earlier, the B. coli, Volantidium coli. It has a cyst that it can form. Anytime they form a cyst, of course, they can go into dormancy and then come alive and cause disease for us. All right, so you can see right here, that's one of these in
That's
the
no
microscope.
bueno.
It's not good, right. So what happens here is it gets into your, like you take it into your mouth through contaminated food, and it actually reproduces in your gut.
Oh, that kind of looks a little fluffy.
Oh, yeah. They move around in your gut, not good. Causing diarrhea, stuff like that. All right, next phylum, Sporozoa. Now you know there's going to be spores formed on these guys. No means of locomotion. So under locomotion box, say none.
It already has
none.
it done.
Oh, okay. Various habitats. I think they're all 30,000 species are parasites. They're all pathogenic. So we need to stay away from these guys. They have asexual reproduction. They make spores that allow them to spread. Even when times are bad, they can preserve those spores in that little packet there. They have a hardened cytoplasm making the spore cell wall. And something called plasmodium causes a disease you've heard of called malaria. It gets injected into you by way of a mosquito. Malaria. That's another thing you'll probably have to be vaccinated against to go to Africa. Also toxoplasmosis. Cats carry toxoplasmosis. It's really important if you have a cat and clean out the kitty box. Pregnant women should never do that. Even if your cat's just fine, pregnant women should never clean out the litter box, because if you get this, you're going to cause a problem with the baby in you. So, yeah, you got to get the husband to scoop the box out. My cat goes outside. So
Yeah,
I'm
you'll
happy.
be fine. I'm sure John Clearly is John the Third will be fine. Everything's gonna be like in his son. Clearly is John the Third.
All right, y'all pretty good here?
Yes, man.
Let's take a look at one of them right here. Here's this little, spore type thing, nucleolus right there. Best known plasmodium, they invade red blood cells where they'll multiply, eventually escaping. Ruptured cells, it's horrible. Here we're going to see how it goes through the liver. So a mosquito injects you with some sporozoites that it's been growing in its gut. The mosquito is called a vector. The vector means it's spreading the disease, but it's not ill from it. The little mosquito doesn't get sick from it, but it spreads it around. Question?
But why?
Why? It doesn't know it's doing it.
So
But it just
Why does it not get sick from it?
it's because it's a vector. It doesn't affect it.
So
Most
so mosquitoes
pathogens
just have
are
vectors?
host specific. Like something that attacks a snake doesn't usually attack humans. We don't usually get sick. Couple
So
of
is that-
a couple of major exceptions:
So-
bird flu, and some things in primates will affect it.
So if let's say a rattlesnake gets injected with rattlesnake venom, it won't hurt it, or will it hurt it?
It might hurt it. Yeah. Sometimes they bite themselves and it hurts them. They accidentally bite themselves.
So we need some mosquito blood to fight off the mosquito blood.
Once again,
How
Africa.
about what if I bite the mosquito instead?
You can try it. So they
What if I eat the
inject it
mosquito?
into you. It goes to your liver, where it goes through this really bizarre life cycle right here. We have an asexual cycle where it just bursts out and infects new red blood cells. Okay, or it makes gametocytes, which turn into the small type of the worm, which finishes its life cycle in the mosquito.
Do mosquitoes have livers?
That's a good question. I don't know. Not that I know of.
Malaria is caused by a group of microorganisms, Plasmodia. Very weird microorganisms that consist of just a single cell. They're parasites that completely rely on mosquitoes. Malaria always starts with an insect bite. In its salivary glands, thousands of sporozoites wait until the insect penetrates your skin. Immediately after invading you, they head for the liver, where they quietly enter big cells and hide from the immune system. For up to a month, they stay here in stealth mode, consuming the cells alive and changing into their next form, small, drop-like merozoites. They multiply, generating thousands of themselves, and then burst out of the cells. So thousands of parasites head into the bloodstream to look for their next victims, red blood cells. To stay unnoticed, they wrap themselves in the membranes of the cells they killed. Imagine that. Killing someone from the inside and then taking their skin as camouflage. Brutal. They now violently attack red blood cells, multiplying inside them until they burst, then finding more red blood cells, and this cycle repeats over and over. Pieces of dead cells spread lots of toxic waste material, which activates a powerful immune response, causing flu-like symptoms. Among the symptoms are high fever, sweats and chills, convulsions, headaches, and sometimes vomiting and diarrhea. If malaria breaches the blood-brain barrier, it can cause coma, neurological damage, or death. The parasites are ready for evacuation now. When another mosquito bites the infected human, they get a ride. The cycle can start over.
All right, here we go. Insidious. Okay, so here we go. We can see the red blood cells and these blue ones right here. The malaria has infected those, and they burst, like it said. Here they are bursting those red blood cells. So it's pretty awful.
So maybe we should just kill all the mosquitoes.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. It
Burn 'em.
might cause the bats to die, but I don't know. All right, here's a slime mold.
Let's get more bats.
Dang.
Now, like I said earlier, there's disagreement on where these guys belong. They might belong here with the protists, or they might belong with fungi. They tend to
Somebody just
eat
poured it
the
out.
way fungi
I
eat.
wanna eat it.
Oh,
Okay. This one is called dog vomit
Wrong one.
slime
Yeah.
mold.
It looks like
Why?
somebody threw like one of the cakes you would buy like at a store.
Just on the
White
ground.
frosting,
I
yeah.
popped it.
Okay, and if you come the next day, it's going to have moved a little bit because they're slimy. They move along the ground. They
Really?
crawl.
Could you eat
It
it?
looks like
No.
one of those.
No, no.
They're like snails.
Slime
This
molds
looks
are
like vintage
saprophytes. They're
fried egg.
okay. Apparently, your book is saying fungus-like protists. So your book has made the decision to put slime molds in Kingdom Protista. All right, I don't know if I agree with that
Why not?
because they really act a whole lot more like a fungus, which I think I'll cover them in Kingdom Fungi next time. Two types of fungus-like protists are the slime molds and the water molds. They are saprophytes, eat dead and decaying organisms. That's very fungal. All right, they recycle dead nutrients. They reproduce by producing spores. But they have a very unusual ability. You can, they move. I told you they move. They
Yeah.
slime around. Where you can kind of teach them where to move.
Wasn't there some Chinese experiment where they put them in a little maze
I think
with
that might
food
be
on
the-
one side, and then it went
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
maze and found the food?
Yeah, it's almost like they can think. Yes, Eddie.
Can I keep it as a pet?
Some people do actually.
They did one where they made a map of the New York City
Oh, that's cool.
tunnels, and they made it run.
Well, I've
to all
got
the
something for
major
us to watch
buildings.
right here. I hope the video works. Yes,
We should get a class pet. We should get one and make it a class pet.
I'd be cool with that. Let's see if it works. Oh, awesome. Okay. I just looked it up. It looks like I can buy one on Etsy.
Buy one.
Yeah.
$6, free shipping. We'll see. All right, now we're moving on to subkingdom algae, right? So normally we could have stopped, and worked on stuff, but no, we got to keep going. All right, so let's go quickly. Here we go. Kingdom Protista algae. We're going to look at the plant-like protists. Okay. So my first question is, what is plankton? Plankton refers to tiny organisms that float. That is the word I'm looking for.
How come he walks in space?
Organisms that float. They might have a way to move around, but they can't overcome the waves or the.
Where are we rating that at?
Oh, you don't have a blank for that one?
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Well, put it in the blank. We have two big types of plankton. We have zooplankton, those would be the animal-like ones, and we have phytoplankton, those would be the plant-like ones. You see how we should have split these groups up, right, instead of bacteria. All right, so these are things that float. So technically a piece of driftwood that's floating in the ocean is plankton. Seaweed that's floating in the ocean is plankton. Anything, if you're floating in the water, you're plankton at that moment, okay? But the truth is you can probably start swimming and overcome the current, right? Hopefully.
Not if you
Unless
have
we're
no
in
arms and
reptiles.
legs.
That's true. That would be a bummer. All right, so zooplankton are floating organisms that are small animals or protozoans. Protozoans can be in this group. But that right there is a larval stage of an animal, probably a crab or something like that. So animals in their larval stage would be considered part of zooplankton. All right, so here we have a variety. Copepod, a tiny crustacean like a little baby shrimp or something like that. A fish larva. Here's a sea star larva. A radiolarian is a cool little creature that has all these little spikes sticking out of it. I covered that in marine biology. Here's a photo of a bunch of different kinds of little zooplankton, little tiny animals, yes.
Would a helgramite be qualified under these?
I'm not sure what a helgramite is.
It's a larva fly. They live underwater under like rocks and stuff.
Okay.
And they're kind of like these. It looks really creepy. It's like a little alien bug. It looks like a centipede.
Do they move on their own power?
They do.
Okay. So if they have true motility, maybe not. But if they can't overcome like the current,
They
then
have
they'd be
to like
considered
go under
zooplankton.
rocks in order to move. They
Okay.
can't like swim up current and stuff.
Here's a larval stage of something. Not sure. I think that might be a radiolarian. No, I showed you a radiolarian. This might be. I'm not sure. All right, phytoplankton are photosynthetic organisms that drift in the water, floating. Euglena are both autotrophic and heterotrophic. These are the ones that can change to be eating depending on if they don't have enough light. But they also, if they don't have enough light for long enough, they'll lose the ability to do photosynthesis. They have an eye spot. The eye spot's going to lead them to the light. They're the biggest oxygen producers on the planet. We're going to see, not the Euglena necessarily themselves, but Euglena are in this group. The biggest ones would be ones called diatoms. You're going to be looking at some diatoms today under the scopes.
How much oxygen do they produce?
About 86 or 87% of the oxygen we need. And they're in the oceans.
Yeah, because the people who tried to do that biosphere in
Right,
Arizona.
exactly. So this I would put blue-green algae in this group as well. Okay, so any of these, so blue-green algae, even though they're bacteria, are also planktonic, but they're just really, really small. Okay, so hopefully the slides I gave you, you're going to see some pretty awesome-looking diatoms. They will be stained, so their colors will not be accurate to what they mostly look like little glass, they're see-through. So here's a picture of some that are alive, different ones. So this right here is a glass petri dish, top and bottom, they fit over like that, right? They used to always be made that way, but the petri dish I sent you home with was plastic, right?
No.
But this glass one is, I love these because this is a whole lot like what the cell wall of a diatom is. It's made of silicon dioxide, that's glass. And they have a top part and a bottom part. It's really cool. All right, and so they're just like this guy, and then their innards are on the inside. And when they reproduce, they break apart and they make a new one of these, and this one makes a smaller one that goes in there. Very cool stuff. Hopefully your slides will look really good. All right, so we have phytoplankton that get their energy from the sun. Zooplankton get their energy from the phytoplankton. Small fish eat the zooplankton. Bigger fish eat the small fish. Biggest fish eat the other fish right there. So we see our a circle of life right here, and how important the phytoplankton are in the food chain. All right, this is a diatom. diatom. Look at it. It doesn't look like a living creature. It looks like something out of,
That
you
looks
know.
like it'd be a mushroom.
Let's say a speaker.
Okay, like a
Or
speaker. I
speaker.
think it looks like something mechanical, right? So
Looks
remember,
like
it's
a
kind of like
waffle
this
fry.
thing right here.
We should just go waffle bowl then.
These things are called desmids. They're
It's a
similar.
banana.
They're type of diatom that have that same type of cell wall, but they have a little more
That looks
interesting
like a
shapes.
banana.
And they're green because they go through photosynthesis. Here's a picture of one right here. They have really interesting.
It kind of looks like a snowflake.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So they have. I like the shape of them. That they're kind of crunchy. Okay, we call them phylum Chrysophyta. Chryso meaning crystal. All right. So we have diatoms, 1,000 species or so. The cell walls are made of silicon dioxide, SiO2, like glass. Diatomaceous earth. Have you heard of DE? Diatomaceous earth.
Yes.
Okay, it's very abrasive. Not to us so much because it's so powdery. We feel like powdery. But if you give it, if you like put worms, like earthworms will crawl across it, it'll cut them up because it's like glass.
Yeah, we give it to our chickens and it kills little mites. and stuff.
Exactly. So it's safe for like us. Some people use it for pool filters. We don't. They're unicellular. They're drifters. They're plankton. They photosynthesize their food. They're also great oxygen producers. So these are in that same group of the creatures producing oxygen in the 86, 87, 88% for the whole Earth. I'm not sure how much you're supposed to remember about these names of these phyla, but phylum Chrysophyta, crystal diatoms.
On our algae phyla thing, there's not a phylum
For Chrysophyta?
Oh, there's that one. Okay, never mind.
I was about to say
Found it.
should. It's one of the main ones. We're definitely looking at these under the scope today. Because they're really cool looking under the scope. They won't look as cool as the next slide I'm going to show you, but they are cool looking.
What? Also. Are you just checking out or should I do my job? Thanks, Mom. Don't touch me, Eddie. Don't.
All right, so these are pretty good looking ones there. Here's some others that are really great. I don't think ours are quite that good. If you get really close, you can start to see other structures in there.
It looks like a plastic, like a ball.
It
Yeah,
looks
they look
it
like
was
something from
picture
outer
taken
space.
In 1950.
So that's that cell wall having that glass. They can have all these really interesting looks to them. These are what you call scanning electron micrographs. Very, very like 5,000x, showing them with all their different structures in them. Okay, chlorophyta. You see chloro, that's going to be green. Green algae, the spirogyra are some of the most fun to look at under the microscope. They can have long filaments, 2 feet long. I mean, that's visible, right? 2 feet long. About 7,000 species. They have a cell wall of cellulose like a plant. All right, they look something like that. Oh, the Volvox. Some people put Volvox in this group. We do not. We put the Volvox in the other group on the previous page, right? But just to let you know, there is disagreement among biologists on how to classify things. So some people put Volvox here. In chlorophyta, not in spirogyra, but in chlorophyta.
They gotta put them in kingdom Animalia.
Yeah, I mean, not really there, but. And they're still in Protista here. It's just which phylum. No, this is algae, right? We're in algae now. But still in still in Protista, not protozoan. Some people think they're protozoans, some people think they're algae.
Now seems like the right time to pass. Is Pluto a planet?
No, it's a dwarf planet.
Neither. I was trying to remember.
All right, here's what they're going to look at under the scope. Now you can see why they're called spirogyra. You see the spiral of the chlorophyll in there. Those chloroplasts are arranged in little spirals. And when we look at them under the scope, you're going to see they're going to be stained, and they don't usually use a green stain, so they won't be green. But these are just the little, the way the arranged chloroplasts are. Okay, pyrophyta. Pyrophyta is our next group. Dinoflagellates. In this particular case, dino meaning two flagella. They're photosynthesizers, large oxygen producers. Some are bioluminescent. They can bloom. If you've been to the coast and there's a algae bloom going on, it's awful. Sometimes we call it a red tide. It makes you feel sick. You can't even stand out by the water when that's happening because it makes your eyes all, it's awful.
Can we drink it?
No. In fact, fishermen who get shell creatures like clams and things like that, they cannot fish during the time of the red tide and probably have to wait a certain amount of time. It'll make you sick.
During it.
Oh, you can't even go out there. But they do.
It wasn't a very good one.
It wasn't a bad one? Because if you're going to go down, you can call ahead to say, is there any problem? We don't have them tons and tons down at the coast, but we do have them, for sure.
Dino.
Yeah, I know, like a dinosaur, right? But in this case, it has to do with the number 2, apparently. These are some of the ones also that you will find in ponds, some fresh water, but they're very prevalent in the ocean, salt
If I
water.
see a pond that's red, don't swim in it.
Oh yeah, stay away.
Why would you swim in it in the first place?
I mean, if it's
I
red
saw
clay,
summer day.
whatever around it,
If
you
I
know.
saw a pond that was red, I would think someone died in there.
So check this out. We have a flagellum out down here at the bottom. That's giving it locomotion, but the second flagellum is wrapped around the center and like a curly Q right there.
Kinda like
And
a
what
bell.
that does is like a corkscrew, it'll cause it to kind of spin around. All right, so it's got this interesting cell wall on it right here. And here is what the cell wall, the test, if you will, looks like this. The flagellum comes out of this place called the sulcus, which just means an indention. And then you can see where the other one wraps around that little groove that's in there. All right, some of them are bioluminescent. I have raised these. Did I tell you all that story that I had some that I raised?
Really?
And I raised them for my marine biology class. It was so much fun. And at night I would look at them and I would swirl it and it would glow and all this. So I brought them to class and I had the room as dark as possible. Nothing. And it turns out they're on a rhythm, so they only glow at night.
Could
So,
you,
but
like,
I took
buy
all the
those
class
too?
to the coast. Took the class and we took it down there and I did it in the middle of the night. And they were like, oh, because it was glowing. I just swirled it and it started glowing. It was very, very cool.
Could you buy that too?
Oh yeah, I had purchased it somewhere. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna watch it. Yeah.
Did you know there's like oceans that are full of that stuff and like
Yeah.
people that
What's that movie where the kid like moves his hand? The Life of Pi, right? Where he moves his hand, everything's glowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's watch a little. This is gonna show some of it.
Elliot, can you quickly tilt up a little bit? Okay.
Is that good?
That's nice. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's excellent. Some more of that, please.
The Starlight cameras reveal one of the little-known wonders of the world, and a key to finding the giant squid: bioluminescence.
It's normally too dim to see, but on a starry night like this, it's perfect. Most people have no idea that, in fact, most of the creatures down there tonight have the ability to make light.
Here's some little squid. They're glowing. They're delicious.
They are.
That is really utterly extraordinary, mesmerizing, actually. Look at that, look at that. The images are really quite special, like nothing that we've ever done, or I think indeed nothing anyone's ever seen before.
So watch his hand.
The Starlight cameras show something even stranger. Seawater glows when stirred. It's actually minute plankton illuminating when agitated.
He jumped in. Oh, sure. You're swimming in them all the time. You don't even. The only reason it's because it's
And
dark
this
enough.
light is especially clear when large creatures swim through the water.
Yeah, we don't care about the large creatures. We just care about the small ones. Okay.
That was a little out of pocket. Bioluminescent.
Bioluminescence
Illuminates
is
the
very,
night,
very
and it's
cool.
the key to finding the giant squid.
Bioluminescent. I just like don't sleep at night. because
Okay.
It's so bright.
We're also working with the idea of using algae farms for different things. For one thing, people eat algae.
Ice.
They come in little capsules called, what are they called? Green. They're
Sea
green. What?
Sea moss?
Chlorella. Chlorella is one of them. Yeah, and it's like a nutrient. They're full of nutrients. So people will farm them. They're kind of easy to grow. You just basically let them bloom, right? You let them get warm enough, shallow enough pools. But there's also the idea of using them for biodiesel, because it turns out they have oils in them. And when you take the oils and you have enough of them, you can get that oil out. And guess what? You can put in a diesel engine. Oils. Yeah. All right. Our multicellular algae. What kind of blanks do you have left? Okay, those are these. These are our multicellular. These are the ones you can see with your eyes. Okay, you don't need a microscope. All right, phaeophyta. So the phaeophyta are brown algae. Write that down. Brown algae are the phaeophyta. They live in colonies. They're not independent. Kelp and rockweed, very large, have air bladders that keep them floating. They can grow to be 100 meters tall. Their cell wall is made of something called alginic acid. As a matter of fact, that biology plate that I sent home with you, the agar that was in it was made with alginic acid. In other words, it was made from seaweed. You've eaten this before if you've ever eaten ranch dressing. Other kind of dressings that are a little gloppy, they're going to have seaweed in them. And those are part of the brown algae.
Like what about blue cheese?
No, that's a fungus.
Blue cheese is good.
No.
We'll talk about that next week or the next 2
Where
weeks.
does ranch come from?
Ranch dressing?
Yeah.
Well, so they have, whatever spices or whatever they put in there, and then to make it thick, to thicken it, the thickening agent is alginic acid, which comes from seaweed.
Dill is
A
big
lot of
part
things that are thickened come from this.
Dill is a big part of ranch.
So, I've eaten straight up seaweed. Do you think I'm eating seaweed?
If you're eating seaweed, you're eating seaweed, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's good for you. Do you like it? They sell it in the store, like in a chip, right?
Mhm.
Have you ever had, what do you call it?
I like it on
sushi rolls. That's seaweed.
I eat sushi and I eat straight up
What?
seaweed.
I'm not a big fan. I do like sushi. I like sushi.
No, sushi.
But I don't like those chips or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so you can see here, this is called a kelp forest. Let's skip this video, we don't have time. You can see here, it looks like a plant, but it's not a plant. This looks like a root, but it's not a root. Do you know what the job of roots are?
No.
It's to absorb
Yeah.
water. These live in the water. They don't need their roots to absorb water for them. But they call it a holdfast. What do you think its job is? To hold on to something. They hold on to a rock or whatever to keep them on the bottom. And then these little gas bladders called pneumatocysts, allow them to float to keep those blades up closer to the sunlight so they can do photosynthesis. That's called a blade, not a leaf. And this is called a stipe, not a stem. You don't have to draw that? Okay, good.
Can?
Phylum Rhodophyta. Rhodo means red. These are the red algae. Sometimes called coral weed. They live around coral in warm waters and some deeper depths. They're red in color, but they are green also. They do photosynthesis, but they have another color in there that makes them appear to be red. So we have the brown algae, the red algae, and the last one will be the green
What's
algae.
their cell wall?
Do I not have it in there? Maybe I do. No, I don't have it. Cell wall, just put the same as what was the last one?
Alginic.
No, what was someone before it?
Cellulose?
Cellulose. That's it. Cellulose is cell wall. I should add that in there. Okay, you can see here it does look red.
Oh wow, it's kind of creepy looking.
Okay. Now we're doing a summary. Interesting. Eukaryotic cells, algae are the most important oxygen producers on our planet. We didn't have one more in there
No.
for green algae? Did we already do green algae?
We did that one.
We did green algae. Okay, very good. All right, God's prepared a way for them to continue to reproduce and stay replenished. And it's time for lab. Okay, so you have a microscope in front of you with some slides. Look at your book on page whatever. And I have slides for you. And then I'm going to put some pond water. So, Hayden, I'm going to have you take this little deal. I want you to put some water from that thing into one of them. And then that water into another. Okay? Let's use pipettes. Remember we used those pipettes today in chemistry?